Okay, so yeah, so the first question, can you provide an overview of the current state of eating disorders in Belgium and share any like facts or statistics that highlight the prevalence, which is like the importance or the kind of
Mhm,
severity, how serious it is, and
mhm.
impact of these disorders in Belgium?
There are no national like numbers about how many people with eating disorders we have in Belgium, but there has been a study in 2009. Um, it was an epidemiological study from Preti and other colleagues, and actually eating disorders in Belgium are as common as in other countries, but we saw that in comparison with five other European countries, Belgium has a little bit more eating disorders problems than other countries. Most of the time, we think Belgium and the Netherlands are very similar, but we saw that for bulimia and binge eating, we had a bigger amount of people with eating disorders than in the Netherlands. So for us, it was very interesting to know. What was also interesting is that only 1 in 3 persons with an eating disorders are seeking help. So that's a very low amount of people. So there's a big gap, I think, between people who are in need for help and the services that can provide help. So that's an issue, I think. In Belgium, we have 5 big clinics where people can have residential therapy treatment, and uh, some of those hospitals also provide daycare, day treatment. Most of the other people are just going to a dietitian and a psychologist and their general practitioner for help. Um, so that's a little bit about the current situation. We also saw an increase in people with eating disorders during Corona, and still going on. So it was mostly apparent in the younger group. So younger people from 10 to 15 years old, and we didn't have enough services, so they got admitted at pediatric wards, and they had to learn a lot about the treatment of eating disorders. So it was a very big challenge. The government has provided some financial support to have some temporary extra beds for younger people, but I think the project is ending or has ended already. I'm not sure. So it was just to cover the most recent needs at that moment.
Yeah, that ties in really nice with my next question, which is like, what are some of the unique challenges faced by individuals with eating disorders in Belgium? As you said earlier, like the pediatric ward needed to learn how to treat people with
Mm-hmm.
eating
Yeah.
disorders.
Uh-huh.
Is it
Yeah.
that like there's not as much research or education on eating disorders, or like what is it kind of?
I think pediatric staff is mostly has a medical training, and they don't have much psychiatric training. So they were suddenly faced with a problem they weren't educated to treat. So that was a big challenge, I think. Yes. Uh-huh. And on the other hand, we saw youngsters having a feeding tube, and after 2 weeks of hospitalization, they were sent home. But the general practitioners weren't educated to know how can we help patients this young with a feeding tube at home to stop with the feeding tube and to start eating again. So for the first time, they had to do things they have never done before. Other things are that in Belgium, until 2 years ago, there wasn't that much day treatment. So people could have their 1 hour appointment with a psychologist or a dietitian, or they could be hospitalized, but there wasn't much in between. So now, since a year or 2 years, there are different programs where people can be um, from Monday a 5 day treatment or a 3 day treatment, and they go at home afterwards. So there has been some improvement and some changes, but there are not that many options.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry to ask for a follow-up. Do you think
Uh-huh.
it's like a cultural thing, or is it because like a population thing, lack of resources? What do you
Yeah, I think it's a lack of resources, and I know that like treatment programs for people with eating disorders aren't that cost effective. uh, they cost a lot. Maybe 50% is getting better, and 50% stays ill. So it's not that cost effective in medical terms or financial terms. So I think hospitals aren't that keen on putting up another ward or providing some funding for those programs.
Yeah, okay, definitely. I'm now going to move on to the more like advocacy side.
Mm-hmm,
But yeah,
mm-hmm.
how did you get involved in eating disorder advocacy, especially in Belgium yourself?
Yeah.
And what motivated you to take up this cause?
I've had an eating disorder myself, and when during my recovery, I met the organization where I'm advocating for. I was really helped by other volunteers, and I just wanted to have my experience and to help other people and to stand up for people that aren't, yeah, strong enough. It isn't maybe the case, but they don't always feel like having the guts to say what the needs are.
But yeah, so in your experience being an activist, are there
Mhm.
any misconceptions or special things about eating disorders that you've experienced in Belgium? I
Mhm.
know that in China, like where I'm from, it's very much like thinness. So I
Mhm.
think anorexia is more common than bulimia and binge eating. Because are there any things
Mhm.
that you've noticed? And are there any like cultural things where people are like, oh no, eating disorders don't exist like that?
Mhm. Mhm. Um, I think people are aware that eating disorders do exist, but if I tell people I've had an eating disorder, most people will interpret it as if I had anorexia. So eating disorders are anorexia. I've had bulimia and anorexia. So most people, if they hear the word eating disorders, they think about instantly anorexia, and they forget there are other variations. We often hear parents and other people say, "Yeah, you just have to eat." Like, yeah, that's the big issue. So they don't always understand it's not a choice, and it's really a mental health problem. It's about anxiety, and people don't feel capable of eating normal. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, that people think you have it in your own control, or it's a lack of discipline or whatever.
How have you kind of addressed these issues? I know you yourself, like you share your experience, but are there any
Yeah.
other ways you do that as well?
Yeah, what we try to do with our organization is some of our volunteers are speakers, so they go to schools or to a bachelor bachelor degree education programs like social work and nursing and psychology, that kind of education. So they try to tell people about what are eating disorders, not in DSM categories, but in true experiences, and they try to make people aware that it's a very complex problem. So they go to schools. We try to speak with in Belgium. Yeah, we have two communities. We have Flanders and we have Wallonie. So the French speaking part, Flanders, that's where I am located. We have our organization, that's a self-help group, and we also have a professional organization. It's called Eat Expert, Eating Expert, translated. They give a lot of information, they provide extra education, and they also talk with the government, and they try to get the funding right, and it's something we do together, but we try to convince people about if you want to give some good help, what could that look like. We try on different levels to inform people, to tell our stories.
Do you think that telling your stories have helped? I mean, have you seen any change or progress in people understanding? And are there any other types of kind of raising awareness strategies you guys
Mhm.
use?
In Belgium, we also have the Red Nose action. Every year, there's another theme. Mostly, it's about mental health in youngsters, in young people, and often they give some testimonials about youngsters with suicidal tendencies or anxiety or eating disorders. So there are different ways we try to reach people. We also have a website. We on the 2nd of June we also try to inform people about the 9 myths about eating disorders and so on. So we try on different media to raise awareness and to inform people. And I think if people are interested in mental health issues, we can make a difference, because then they receive the information and they read it, and or they listen to stories. But if they are not interested, then they are very hard to reach.
Yeah, I agree that with so many issues, if they're not listening, you really can't.
Yeah.
Have you noticed, like, obviously, as you said, you work June 2nd, World Mental Health. So you kind of know about mental health awareness in other countries.
Yeah.
Have you seen any differences between advocacy in Belgium compared to other countries? And what are some of these differences, as well as what can other countries learn from what you guys are doing right now?
Yeah. I think one of the differences can be that some countries or some organizations have a lot more financial resources, so they can make like a movie or a short testimonial or something. We don't have those kind of resources, so everything we do is low cost. So that's a big difference, I think. What I think is that if you go out and you talk to people face to face, my experience is that it has a greater impact than if you just show some people a movie or a testimonial on YouTube or whatever. So I think the fact that we are reaching out to different groups, we try to do it as good as we can, has more impact, direct impact, because most of the times in the audience there are people who are experiencing eating disorders themselves, or they have a family member, and afterwards they come and they talk about it. So then you can make a difference if you are reaching those people face to face, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that the bigger organizations, even though they have a lot of funding, because they're doing it in such a big area, they might
Yeah.
not be able to create true change. So that's why I think that local advocacy isn't so important.
Yeah.
Why I want to
Yeah.
elevate your message.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm on my last question now. So,
Mhm.
kind of looking beyond Belgium, what do you think are some best practices or approaches to eating disorder prevention or advocacy that you think are good and valuable? And how do you incorporate these into your work in Belgium?
I once was at a conference for positive psychology, and I'm also working in the education field, and there was a pre-conference day about education and positive psychology, and I really was intrigued by how if we in our educational system try to change our focus from problem solving to helping children find their values and help them in developing coping skills and other things about how you can be a human being in this world today. Um, it had a very big impact on mental health problems and in well-being. So those children were more mental fit, doing better. I found it very encouraging and inspiring. So I think if we would be able to do so in our educational system and in our organizations for youngsters and everywhere, so not focusing on the problems, but on how can we help people become the best version of themselves and whatever that looks like. There are some organizations doing a great job in having a very diverse organization. And I think also that also is very helpful. If you have diversity in your management, in your staff, in your everywhere, it shows that yeah, people can look different ways and we really appreciate them. And I think that's one of the things we we are lacking in Belgium. I think if you go to a residential ward for people with eating disorders, most of the staff are white females. So where are the colored people? Where are the males? So I think if we could be more diverse in yeah different in our organizations at different levels, that would be also beneficial, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think diversity and real change comes from the top to the bottom.
Yeah.
But
Uh-huh.
yeah, so that's really all of the questions I had for now, and I don't want to waste your time. But I did want you to kind of give an introduction about yourself because I think I didn't ask you this, and the
Yeah.
organization you work for,
Yeah.
any like website, social media you want to share. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a clinical psychologist and a social worker, and I'm working with an organization which is called ANBN. It's short for anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, and it's a self-help group for people who are suffering from eating disorders, but also for their caregivers. So we try to combine everything. We have different local workings with volunteers. So they have like walk-in centers where people can come in and have a talk. We have self-help groups where people are talking with each other. We also have a website. It's anbn.be, like the name of our organization. And we also have Instagram, and we tried a TikTok, but we are looking for a volunteer that can follow that up, that's more experienced in those things, because there are so many different mediums, and it's not that easy to know what you can do with them on a unhelpful way. So
Yeah, definitely, I agree.
mhm.
TikTok, I've tried it as well. Not easy.
No.